What is up, Duke fans, and welcome to another episode of Duke Blue Central. A very happy episode tonight. Very happy episode because we're going to be breaking down Duke's utter beatdown of ASU in their last exhibition before the season starts. We're here, ladies and gentlemen. We're at the start of the season. Feels super exciting to be here on the eve, kind of an amazing Duke basketball season. And let me tell you, don't have a lot of negative things to say about this Duke exhibition. It was an eventful time, a great time to be watching if you were a Duke fan, as we got to welcome back Duke legend Bobby Hurley into Cameron. And let me tell you, after the performance Duke put on against his ASU Sun Devils, I don't know if Bobby's going to be coming back to Cameron anytime soon. And he even alluded to that in his post-game press conference. But in case you've been living under a rock as a Duke fan, the game went pretty well for us. We won 103-47 against. Let me remind you, this is Arizona State. This is not some Division III team. All right, this is a Division I Big 12 school, and I know they're recently in the Big 12. They're a Pac-12 school turned Big 12 school, but wins like this typically don't happen, where you're beating a team this bad that is on the same level as you. And let it be known, too, ASU, I do not think is going to be a great team this year. I think they'll finish bottom three in the Big 12, but they have some talent on their team. They had one of the top recruits in Jaden Quintance on their team, expected to kind of be an NBA prospect moving forward. He is the youngest player in college basketball. By the way, second youngest player plays for the Blue Devils by the name of Cooper Flagg, but they're both two 17-year-olds. Interesting thing about Quintance is that he's not even eligible for the draft next season or this off season because of his age. So it's looking like ASU is going to keep him for 2 years if they can stop him from transferring, which, depending on how their year goes, I don't know if that's likely. See if they can put together another NIL bag for him like they did this year. But yeah, again, this is not a Division III champion. It's not a Division II champion. This is a regular old Division I team, I believe, ranked 71st in KenPom's rankings. By the way, Duke is going to play several teams that, according to KenPom, depending on how much stock you put into that, are worse than ASU. I think Notre Dame is around there. Virginia Tech will be around there. Maybe Georgia Tech. Well, we're going to play some teams that are similarly ranked to them within our own conference in the ACC. And if we're beating those types of teams by 50, like we did against Arizona State, it's going to be an incredible year here at Duke. But let's talk about how this happened. How did this insane score happen? Well, in the first half, it wasn't as wild. Duke only led 37-21, 16-point lead. I say that as if it's I mean, we were on pace to beat them by more than 30 points, which, like, I think if this game is, 47-77, I think we're all sitting here being like, good, beat a D1 team by 30. Like, that's a good win. Still, second half, first half score was 21-37. Second half, Arizona State only managed to get 5 more points than their first half total. 26 points in the second half to Duke's 66 total second half points. So the starters for this game, more typical starting lineup. I believe we saw the starting lineup that we're going to see in the regular season this year. Your starters were, I guess, kind of who people were saying coming out of practices. It was Caleb Foster at the point guard position, Tyrese Proctor also at that point guard / 2 guard. Caleb Foster actually ran a lot of point during the scrimmage. And you had Kon Knueppel bringing up your wing. What a player he is quickly becoming without even playing a real game here at Duke. Cooper Flagg, of course, at your 4, and Kaman Malowach bringing up your 5. So this is the lineup everyone kind of expected to see, at least after hearing the rumors of how the practices were going. I don't think people were not predicting Kon to start before this year. Kind of when we heard of the recruits, I think more people had Isaiah Evans there. Even when a guy like Sion James committed, in my head, I'd kind of penciled him in as that guy who was eventually going to be the third starter. But Kon took over that spot. kind of in the off-season practices, and boy, does it look like he's earned it because he looks like I think he was ranked 25th in the freshman recruit rankings. I guarantee you there are not 25 better freshmen in college basketball than Kon Knueppel. I don't know that there are five better freshmen than him the way we've seen him play. Now, maybe this is just hot garbage overreaction to two scrimmage games. But look, I mean, I invite anyone, Duke fan, non Duke fan, go watch the scrimmage, watch how he plays, and tell me that he's not going to be like a top player in college basketball this season, or like a top player in the ACC at least. And then try and put together a list of 25 more freshmen that are going to score more and be more impactful to their team than Kon is for Duke. By the way, he's doing this at a program with a bunch of other five stars on the team and returning players on the team. It's not like he's at some small school where he gets to be the star. He's playing alongside the like hailed number one recruit for 3 years, Cooper Flag, and he's making a name for himself in these scrimmages. Love everything I'm seeing from Kon so far. But anyway, we'll talk about individual players. But that was your starters. And they did a good job beginning the game. Cooper and Common were leading us in the interior at first. And Duke in the first half had some frustrating moments, at least on offense. The Duke defense looked really suffocating kind of the whole game, in huge part to Common Malawach's massive presence in the paint. If you watch this game as a Duke fan who's watched for several years, it's starting to get slightly familiar to you to have this huge guy in the paint that does more than block shots, but alters pretty much every shot that comes in his way. Last year was kind of the lone exception of the past few years that we haven't had that dominating defensive big man. Now, I know I'm the first one to say I think Flip was a better defender at the five than a lot of people gave him credit for. But admittedly, and I think he would tell you this, he's not the shot blocker that Derek Lively or Mark Williams were, and nor is he the rebounder or even the effector of shots that those guys were. And I don't think that's any fault to Flip. I think he still can succeed. I think he's going to play more four in the NBA. But yeah, so last year we were kind of missing that, at least from what we had in previous years. And I'll tell you, we got all of that back and more this year in Come On Malawach. And I venture to say, and I think this is easy for most Duke fans who are really watching the games, Malawach is more developed now than Mark Williams was when he came in, and Derek Lively was when he came in as well. Now, I'm not saying he's going to guaranteed be better than those two guys by the end of the year or even at the beginning of the year. But just right now, all signs are pointing to him being a high impact player immediately. If you guys remember, Derek Lively didn't start for a huge portion of Duke's season 2 seasons ago, even though he was considered the number one recruit by a couple different media outlets. Had a lot of developing to do on his offensive game. Didn't really have a strategy to like get him the ball and let him score. He was constantly finding himself in foul trouble, and he had to work into his role on that year's Duke team. And then even when he was at his role, there were games he was affecting the heck out of, but the numbers didn't show up on the stat sheet. And as for Mark Williams, it was really his freshman year. You saw flashes of what he could do, but it wasn't until the ACC tournament of his freshman year where Duke eventually didn't make the tournament because of COVID, and or not, I guess totally because of COVID, but someone on the team got COVID, and that stopped their run to have a chance to make the tournament. And then the following year, he had a great season where he really developed his defensive game and his offensive game. He was the ultimate lob threat. Didn't really have a back to the basket type game, but he was a great rebounder and a constant lob threat. Malawach looks every bit of that right now. And he hasn't even suited up and played a real game for Duke. His stat line for the game, he played 21 minutes, was 4 for 7 from the floor. I think all of his points came in the first half. 3 offensive rebounds, 9 defensive rebounds. He finishes with 12 rebounds. Just to give you an idea, this was a good rebounding performance for Duke on the day. A lot of guys finished with 5 or 4 rebounds. Common had 12. The next closest, a tie for 5 between Malik Brown, Kon Knueppel, and Mason Gillis. By far the best rebounder on this team, and will be a double-double threat every night. And I think the one you're gonna have to watch if he scores 10. I think anytime he plays significant minutes, I think it's almost a guarantee he's gonna grab 10 boards, unless the other team is just not missing at all. Um, but Malawach, to me, to my eyes, said that he's ready to start immediately. It's just not the prediction I might have had. I might have thought Malik Brown would have started the year at the 5, maybe, a la kind of a Derek Lively of 2 years ago. Um, but after this, I'm ready to say put him in the starting lineup now. I think he's ready, and the beauty is that you do have a guy like Malik Brown who, although is maybe a little small to play the 5 against some schools, I think can hold it down for us, along with the blocking capability of Cooper Flag back there if Malawach were to get into foul trouble. That's the luxury of having a guy like Malik Brown, who's just great defensively and a really high motor rebounder, where you feel like if there's a missed shot, at least nobody's going to be putting in the more effort to get the rebound than Malik Brown is. So Common was kind of the big highlight of the first half for me. But some from frustrations for Duke were 3-point shooting in the first half. They only went 2 for 11 in the first half as far as their threes went. They were getting decent shots. They just weren't falling. It felt like one of those things that eventually someone was going to break through. Kind of the lid on the basket was going to open and the threes were going to start falling. And oh boy, did that happen. Did that happen in the second half? Yeah, he only shot 18% from three in the first half. Shot 44% from the floor, and we're pretty consistently around that 70% percentage mark for their free throws. But yeah, again, like I said earlier, score at halftime was 37-21. Defense looked awesome for Duke. They were getting turnovers, getting fast break points, and then Arizona State could not find any easy outlets to get easy points. Something that's really jarring, and you can see this in both halves compared to last year's team and even the years before. This Duke team is just way faster, and I think that was an emphasis that John Shire said in the offseason. He was going to play way quicker, and it is noticeable. I think this was a 73 possession game. I believe so, around that, probably 70 plus possession game, and it felt that way. Felt like Duke just had way more shots than they would have the past year. I don't know if that's, a lot of that is obviously based on the player base that we have. I think an issue the past few two Duke teams have is just I think Shire was a little scared of the turnovers they were willing to commit in the past few years. And with a guy like Jeremy Roach on your team, which we love Roach, transferred out, but we still Roach did a lot of good for the program. But with a guy like that, he kind of always wasn't the point guard that wanted to push you up the floor. I think he was more of a stop and slow things down, get things in the half court and the pick and roll working. That's not the way this team functions. Proctor, Foster, Kon, Cooper, all even Common really want to run the floor, and even when you bring in those bench guys, they want to run, and that's very apparent. I love the shot chart on this team. When you look up the shot charts in both of these exhibitions, it's abundantly clear that it's like the only guy who feels like he's allowed to take mid-range shots is Cooper Flag. Those are the only times where it feels like a mid-range shot is getting taken is when it's him, or maybe a Caleb Foster floater kind of with a foot in the paint. Which I think is a great philosophy for basketball, is to either have the three or have a shot at the basket. I think most of the time those two options are your best option. Obviously, don't fall in love with the three, but I think this team is going to thrive on kickouts, getting to the basket and kicking it out to open 3-point shooters, or just taking it to the basket. If the other team is recognizing you're draining your 3-point shots and they decide to stop that. But your first three guys off the bench in this team, which I also think is an interesting thing to watch for the whole season, just with how deep this Duke team is. We talked about that in the first comeback episode. Consistently, I think your first three guys off the bench are going to be Sion James, Mason Gillis, and Malik Brown. I think that is a solid 8-man rotation that I think come into the year, that's what you're going to be looking at. Unless Darren Harris or Isaiah Evans really show a lot in the playing time they have, or of course there's an injury, God forbid, I don't think they're going to break too hard into this lineup. And it was kind of reflected in the minutes today. Malik Brown did get into some foul trouble early, picked up 3 fouls in the first half, so his playing time was kind of cut short. But if you look at the minutes allocation, um, you've got Caleb, Tyrese, Cooper, Common, Sion James, Mason Gillis are all above 20 minutes. Malik Brown is just under them at 17. And I think had he not gotten into foul trouble, he would have also got above that 20-minute mark. And then you see Darren Harris and Isaiah Evans kind of in that next tier at 13 and 11 minutes apiece for each of them. And an interesting wrinkle in that could be if Patrick Ngongba is healthy. He did warm up with the team uh, during before the scrimmage, which is a good sign. I could see him getting some minutes, but only spot minutes when, let's say, there's a game where both of our big men are in foul trouble and we just need a body there to protect the paint. I think you could see him break in some games. But that seems to be your 8-man rotation going into the season, and it's a heck of a rotation. But before I get too deep into that, let's move into what happened on the second half. Because as you heard earlier, 66 to 26, 40-point difference. Yeah, I mean, it's a huge, yeah, 40-point difference in the second half, a huge margin just in one half. That'd be a big margin in a game. It was really on the backs of just insane three-point shooting. In the second half, Duke went 15 for 23. Uh, yeah, you heard that right. Not only did we shoot 23 threes in one half, we made 15 of them, and it brought our percentage up to 50% on the day, 17 for 34 from three. This is going to be a team that shoots a lot of threes, and I think for good reason. And a big part of that was Kon Knueppel in the second half, who made 4 straight threes. He was, I believe, 0 for 2 in the first half, and then just went on a tear. 2 of those were back-to-back possessions, and one of them was an and one 4-point play. And when he gets hot, man, you just got to feed him and watch out. And the cool thing about Kon is his size and frame make it to where he can get his shot off even with defenders around him. Several of these threes, he had a couple hands in his face, and it just did not affect him. His shot is as smooth as anybody's you've seen in recent years in college basketball. And he, again, the frame is what sets him apart. You're not used to seeing a 6'7" wing shoot the ball like this. But man, he can. And what's great about his game is that even when he's not making threes, for example, in the first half, he's still contributing. He ended the game with 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. I believe at least one of those steals came in the first half, and a couple of the rebounds did as well. He's a guy that is a hard worker. I hate to just compare him to Jared McCain because he was a good three-point shooter that was here last year, but I was talking to some of my friends this week, and it's like you were always impressed. We were always impressed with Jared McCain last season because of his motor and his drive, his desire to like get rebounds and be involved defensively. Always impressed you. Kon has that same motor, but a larger size to do it. He's a 6'7" wing. Jared was shorter than that, was a 2 guard that was faster and perhaps more athletic, I don't know, than Kon, at least quicker. But Kon has wing size in that motor. So when he goes up for a rebound, it's all that more likely that he's going to get it. Or, when he has to back a guy down or get up and dunk on somebody, Kon's got the physicality to do it, and he has the drive to do it. This team, the two-headed monster of Cooper Flagg and Kon Knueppel are who is going to be talked about in the media in this team. And what I love about both of them is what sets them apart is not necessarily one singular ability. I guess the closest thing you could say is Kon's shooting ability, which jumps off the screen when you watch him. But even with Cooper, we talked about it in couple of the other episodes, it's like it's hard to pinpoint one exact thing that he's just dominating at. But it's really his mentality and his motor, and you could say the same thing for Khan. It's like he's probably when you look at him, he's not the most just athletically gifted guy on the court, but you can't point to a guy that hustles more than him, including the people on the Duke team. And the same could be said about Cooper. You definitely don't see him, and he's definitely not the strongest guy on the court. He's not the guy that's going to back down big men. But again, there's nobody that has the mentality and wants the ball and wants to rise up and take the team to new heights and out hustle his opponent in every aspect of the game than Cooper Flag. And what separates these two guys is that I think at any given moment, these guys are just on 100 at all times. Doesn't matter the opponent, doesn't matter the court. And we're going to see, I'm going to love to watch these guys play on the road. Watching this team, one of the things I'm getting really excited about is just seeing how they respond to adversity. I actually think one of my predictions, like, I actually think the road is going to be good for this team. I think they were going to thrive off of people, especially Cooper, is going to thrive off of people rooting for their downfall. Um, I think a guy like Cooper Flag gets up for stuff like that and can maybe even slack off when you're at home getting support. Um, Not that Cooper Flag ever slacks off, but it's just hard not to be excited about this team when the thing that separates them is not necessarily their talent, it's their drive. And that was apparent watching the scrimmage. Another awesome thing, um, yeah, I want to highlight is just some of the other stuff in the second half was just incredible. The assists were amazing. I tweeted this out right after the game, and this isn't necessarily second half stats. This is just stats on the overall game. So we out rebounded Arizona State by 16. This is something that, admittedly, even I last year thought. I think rebounding is actually a slightly overrated stat. I think last year Duke's team was a bad rebounding team. And look, we still made it to the Elite Eight, and we're a good half away from the Final Four. I think if you're a talented team who can make shots and at least be kind of average on the boards, you can be good. Everybody falls in love with rebounding when sometimes it just means you're a bad shooting team. But anyway, that tangent aside, this Duke team's going to be a good rebounding team. We out rebounded them by 16. We shot 50% from threes on the day after going 18% in the first half, 2 for 11. We only had 7 turnovers in a 70-plus possession game where we scored 103 points. That is remarkable, especially for a super young team that have not played together a lot. Like this team is a brand new team from last year. Other than Proctor and Caleb Foster, you're not going to recognize a lot of the guys on the team from last year. We had a bunch of transfer outs and a couple guys go to the league, and it's freshmen and transfers and old transfers that have played at different programs. And we only turned the ball over 7 times in a game where we get 100 points. There were games last year where I think of the NC State game. It's like we turned the ball over 5 times in 4 minutes. We start the game, and I'm sure there'll be times like that this season. But to see a team gelling this much from a passing standpoint this early is really encouraging to think about what the ceiling can be. Yeah, so also, we turned them over 18 times and got 26 points on turnovers. This is something that killed me last year. It felt like we were decent at getting turnovers, but we just were not a fast break team, which is so like anti-Duke. Duke has always been a running and fast break team, and sometimes you can't do that. I'm not blaming Shire. Like sometimes you don't have the guys to be a fast break team. But I'm pumped to see like how many points we're gonna get in the fast break. We got 17 fast break points here, it's listed, but we got 26 points on turnovers. So not necessarily all of them were fast breaks, but on the 18 times we turned them over, that's 26 of our points where they could have had a shot on the other side of the floor. Just amazing effort. A ton of steals. How many steals did we had? 11 steals in this game. Just high effort on defense. And I think my favorite stat of the night is on 38 made baskets, we had 25 assists. Yeah, just that's such an important stat for me as far as not only just does it mean you're probably getting good shots, it means that your guys are unselfish. I don't think anybody on this team is worried about their point totals at the end of the night. Everybody likes to see each other succeed, it seems so far. And again, I think that's headed up by what I think are going to be your two-star freshmen this year, Cooper Flag and Kon Knueppel. Those guys just do not seem to care about how many points they score, even though Con ends up with 19. Cooper actually only ends the game with 9 points this scrimmage and was resting for a massive part. It felt like the second half, like he almost didn't play because we were up so big and playing the bench. Um, these guys just don't care about that. It's like it's all about the team and it's all about winning. I think Cooper will probably shoot some shots this year that are like kind of like, okay, that's an NBA shot. He's allowed to do that because he's probably going to be the number one pick that season. If you remember Paolo did that at times. Now you have to limit that and do it in the correct spots. But sometimes Cooper's going to take a star player shot because he is a star player. But I don't think Khan took a bad shot this entire scrimmage. I don't know if I've seen him take a bad shot, period. And same with Cooper. It's like Cooper takes a couple, but 90% of his attempts are shots you would want to take in that moment. He's a smart player, and he's going to pass out of it if he doesn't like the look he's going to get. But this team just looks so unselfish, looks so willing to, kind of promote the other guys on the team. Something I will really want to be watching for going forward is I really want Isaiah Evans and Darren Harris in games consistently. Now, I'm not talking about like in the middle of a battle against Kansas. I'm talking about your games in the ACC against Notre Dame, against Virginia Tech, against, the whoever the bottom barrel ACC teams are, or even mid-range ACC teams. When we're up 10, 15, 20 late, I want them in the game for the rest of the game. This scrimmage minutes, with a few exceptions, like Cooper Flag is going to play more than 20 minutes, but I love the breakdown we have here because we have our 8 guys, but we also have those two, Isaiah Evans and Darren Harris. Darren got 13 minutes. Isaiah got 11. I would love to see in big games, in meaningful games, when we're up by 10 plus and it's late, I want to see them get into the game because that's really the only way guys truly get better is by seeing game time. And also, it's a good way to help them not transfer at the end of the year if they want to come back to Duke. Um, it's hard, and I'm not saying that, you should play them just so they don't transfer. Again, I love the philosophy John Shire takes on this, which is that no minutes, nothing is guaranteed when you sign up. You're signing up for a chance to compete at Duke, not for a chance to just be given a spot on the team. But in those times where we're winning and it feels good, take that time to rest some of your stars and let these guys go out there and play free and not have to worry about fouling, not have to worry about getting into any trouble or things like that or shooting too much because ideally we have a lead and we have the defense to really protect leads. So I really want to see them get a lot of minutes in games like that, just so they can grow and so that they know, hey, on next year's team, you guys are going to be a critical part of that. Look at us. We're already talking about next year's team, and this season hasn't even started yet. But again, yeah, I don't know there's much else I want to say on this scrimmage. This was an amazing game. Duke's last tune-up before the regular season. We start our season by playing Maine on November 4th. Monday, November 4th is the start of the season. We're less than a week away. What an exciting time. That's going to be another game where you expect Duke to have a really big score as opposed to a really little score. Something to watch in that one is just, can Duke continue this, like, just defensive prowess we're on? How good is the Duke defense going to be this season? Is Kon Knueppel going to score 15 plus in every game? What's Cooper look like? It just so many things to watch. But overall, this episode is just a celebration of an amazing performance against an Arizona State team that, again, is a legitimate D1 team. This is not a D2 team that we just slapped up on. I want people to get that. And I don't want to hype it up too much. Like we're going to go 40-0 and never lose a game. I do expect us to lose games. Absolutely. But But man, if we're putting up these types of numbers on teams like this, it's going to be a good season. And there are going to be nights where obviously you're not going to shoot 50% from three. There are going to be nights you shoot 20 to 25% from three. Um, but everything that I've seen from this team leads me to believe that they could handle a game like that. Look, obviously, you don't want to have that game against an elite opponent. You want to have a game like this where it feels like everything's going in, especially that second half where we shot like 66% from three or something like that. But look, I think this team is smart enough that when those dry spots happen, um, they're not going to keep going to the well. I think we have enough presence on the inside with Malawach and Cooper, and even Kon can get down there and play. Caleb Foster can get to the rack. Tyrese Proctor. A lot of these guys, we didn't even talk about their performance. like Sion James is a guy who didn't really, I guess, super stand out against Lincoln. He finishes with 13 points today, 3 for 4, 3-point shooting. Mason Gill is another guy who I was kind of like, man, he's supposed to be this great 3-point shooter and didn't make a shot. Goes 2 for 3, has 10 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. I love what he brings to the team. Also, just like veteran leadership and defensive prowess. It feels like his plus minus is going to be like through the roof this year. It feels like whatever he's on the court, Duke just goes on tears, and it's like not even his stuff is impacts far beyond the stat sheet. But it's going to be like that like this year. It's like Caleb Foster had 17 points. I don't think I've talked about him. Like he shot 3 for 5 from three, 3 assists, 2 steals. He looked great. I love what his game is turning into. But there's just so many guys on this team, man. It's going to be interesting to watch. But yeah, I think that's all I'm gonna hit you guys with for this final tune-up. I want to do another episode before the season starts, kind of just a prediction. We did a prediction episode last season of, who's going to be the leading scorer, who's going to be the leading rebounder, what's Duke's record this season. I want to do that, and maybe at least a prediction of our non-conference record, especially those big games, how I think we're going to fare there. But for now, that's all I'm going to hit you guys with. Thank you so much for listening. We are back. Duke Blue Central is back for the next season of Duke basketball. I'm excited to watch just like you guys are. And hey, if you want to help the show out, leave us a rating wherever you're listening to, and you can follow me over on X at Duke Blue Central. Love to interact with you guys there. Thanks so much for listening. Go Blue Devils.